It's no dream, Lex. This is your life.
I don't understand this. This can't be. This isn't real.
It is real, Lex. As real as you want it to be. All of this can be yours if you make the right choices.
All of this. What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Welcome to Gimmicks, a podcast about the high-concept, experimental, structure-breaking gimmick episodes of TV, from musicals to bottle episodes to a coma dream-inspired what-if story taking place during Christmas. I'm David Arnold.
And I'm Derek B. Gale, and all I do is take, bitch.
Oh, no. Oh, there's so many great singers here, Derek. I am so excited because this episode, we are talking about Smallville's very first Christmas episode, Lexmas.
Yes, and if you're not familiar with Smallville, it is, of course, a Superman adaptation that ran for 10 seasons, split evenly between the WB and the CW from 2001 to 2011, one of the longest-running North American sci-fi fantasy shows of all time by episode count, really surpassed only by its WB CW companion, Supernatural, of course. It's created by Al Gough and Miles Miller, who would go on to co-write movies like Spider-Man 2, and have recently become Tim Burton's go-to guys, having created and showrun the Netflix Wednesday TV series, and also wrote this year's Beetlejuice. And of course, being a Superman show, it's about Clark Kent. Began with a teenage Clark Kent, who was played by then newcomer Tom Welling, alongside his family, friends, romances, and a very homoerotic friendship with future enemy Lex Luthor, played by Michael Rosenbaum. And then the show continues following him through his high school, young adulthood, and eventual Daily Planet career and costumed superhero career. It's known for its no flights, no tights rule that kind of kept the show grounded as a teen soap in its early days, though as it progressed, it did become a lot more fantastical. It was a little pretty liberal with that no flights, no tights rule over time. There were some flights, there were some tights, and it embraced comic book lore, becoming in a lot of ways the first to adapt many DC characters into live action. And also really honestly became a major template for the CW's expansive DC TV universe that would launch shortly after the show's end and really only just wrapped up this past year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I think about when I think about superhero shows on the CW, is it was sort of this universe that had kind of started with Smallville. And I remember, didn't the Green Arrow get introduced here at the end of Smallville, or middle, maybe?
It was about the middle. He was introduced in the middle and was, it was pretty good. It was played by Justin Hartley, who then would go on to this is what is this show? What is that show called? This Is Us. Like a lot more fame on This Is Us. And I think a major, obviously Green Arrow is like a known character in DC Comics, but I think for like a mainstream people, I think this show really amplified Green Arrow's popularity in terms of just casual like television viewers more than comic book nerds, to the point that they could justifiably do a solo Green Arrow TV show, which then launched that whole CW universe afterwards. Yeah, so definitely very instrumental. And a lot of characters that appeared in that like Arrowverse of shows on the CW like first appeared in one way or another in Smallville. So
That's cool.
yeah.
It's interesting because this is not Gimmicks' first time talking about Smallville. Back in the beginning, you covered the excellent episode Noir, but I was listening back to that to see if I could get a little bit of Derek lore on this, and I did not actually get to hear. Derek, what is your experience with Smallville?
Yeah, that first episode, it was very early. It was like, I don't remember when the episode came out on Gimmicks, but I recorded, that was one of the earliest ones I recorded, even if it aired a little later. So it was still kind of figured out. I was really happy to have Craig on for that episode, and he was great. Longtime friend of mine and a huge part of like Smallville's history of the show, but I'm not super proud of some of what I contributed to that episode, because I think it could have been better just because of how early it was.
Hard disagree, Derek. It's a great episode of the podcast. But if you were like me and you had one mission, which is for Derek to say, here was my experience with Smallville, I was like, oh, nuts.
Yeah.
We did not get that.
Yeah. No, I have a long history with the show. And I would like to think pretty interesting for me personally, in that I think this is definitely a show that really helped me. I think really shaped my interest in the intricacies of television, I think, in a way that I hadn't before. Like, I had been into TV shows and followed things on message boards before Smallville, but I don't know that I'd really followed and truly let myself understand and get like really in depth in like the making of a show and the ups and downs of that and what that means until I was really, really hyper involved with Smallville. It was a show, and I think part of that was because the weird way that I watched it was it aired. So it was a WB show, obviously, for the first 5 seasons. But for those who don't know, for a long time, WB and UPN, those two networks, before they merged into the CW, often would be like broadcast in lieu of each other on networks, a lot on certain affiliates and in certain regions. So sometimes regions would only have UPN or only have WB just because of like the limited way that network television was able to work at the time. And even in that case, like sometimes another network would own them. Like even to this day, I think technically my local NBC station also runs the CW station that is local to where I live now, for example.
Right.
So where I grew up, we did not get the WB. We got at a certain point, I think we got WB till like 95 or so. And then we only ever got UPN. And so there's this whole universe of WB stuff that was so up my alley that I was never able to watch until it like got syndicated somewhere or went to reruns. However, it's been a long time, so I forget exactly how all this was able to work, but essentially that local NBC station that owns CW now was able to sort of, I guess, license WB airings locally, but just didn't have a literal channel to put them on. So they couldn't air WB like in their regular time slots, but they could air WB stuff like the same week that it came out on NBC. And so what they would do is that they would basically fill their afternoon and middle of the night programming with primetime WB shows. So that was something that I think my dad first discovered just flipping through channels one day, I think, and was like up late alone one night, knew that there was this Superman show and was a big fan of old Superman stuff. He used to read Superman comics. He loved the Superman movies. He watched like the George Reeves show, you know. So he was aware that it existed, but hadn't had a chance to watch it because he didn't have the channel. Then realized like, wait, that show that is airing on WB is airing on NBC right now. And it was airing at 1:00 in the morning after Saturday Night Live ended. And that's where the show stayed for the entire run of the first 5 seasons. And so he watched it and told me, it was sort of like, this show's really cool. Like, I think you would like it. And so my first episode was in season 2, the episode called Insurgents, which is a really great episode. And so a good one to start off with, because it was a banger one anyway, because it's an episode where there's like a hostile takeover of Luthor Corp, and Martha Kent and Lionel Luthor are like trapped in there, and Clark has to make up this first like huge leap from one building to another from the Daily Planet. It's the first episode that really significantly takes place in Metropolis too. It's a great episode, and it was like, this show fucking rocks. This is so cool. And then from there, it was history. I just stuck with it for the whole rest of its run after that. Went back and it caught as many reruns as they would show in the middle of the night when they showed them, and then got the season 1 DVD when that came out, so I can kind of catch up. But I stuck with it after that. But I think that weird history of sort of like either watching it in the middle of the night or having to tape it, like having to stick through all of Saturday Night Live, including the last half hour that's never as good as the opening, to watch it, or just, tape it on a VHS tape and watch it the next morning. I think that lended a really weird sort of like, almost kind of like a weird like cult kind of exposure to it. Like it felt like the kind of weird movie that you would discover in the middle of the night that no one else has heard of. Just in this case, it was a show that plenty of people have heard of. Many people watched this show, but not many people that I knew watched it because it wasn't airing on prime time. Most people that I knew weren't staying up till 1:00 in the morning after Saturday Night Live to watch it. It was sort of this really special thing that I had, and my dad, and eventually my whole family had, because everybody in my family like really liked it. So there would definitely be like family viewings on Sunday afternoon of last night's Smallville episode. So that made it like really special and unique to me, in a way. And honestly, by the time that we did get CW and I could watch it like on, at 8:00 at night, it kind of became a little bit less special because it's sort of like, now it's just like a regular TV show that everyone can watch and I can just like DVR it or whatever at this point. Like, it's just so weird. So I have a very soft spot for those first 5 years just because of the weird way in which I watched it. But, and I also think it's really personal in that it helped me, I think, really get into Superman stuff. Like, I liked the character in the most general way that you could, but I think I sort of got a better understanding of lore. And while I don't think that this Clark Kent is like the best, most definitive version of Superman there ever was, I kind of have a lot of problems with things that they do with him now that I know Superman better. It still was like a really good gateway into understanding why this character can be compelling and how you can sort of have an attachment to him. And I think really, expanded, and I guess really was my real entry point into Superman as a character and that whole sort of fandom way more than the cartoons were, even as good as they were and the movies were, and helped me kind of retroactively appreciate them more, And also I always like say that like the series finale of the show was like within days of when I graduated college. So like, it was kind of like he became Superman at the same time that I went out into the world,
Wow.
So I always felt that weird attachment of like, even though I didn't literally grow up with him, I also kind of matured, kind of matured into adulthood alongside of him, so many flaws in this show and many things that I don't like about it, but I still love it very, very dearly. And will defend it until my dying breath, even as I also make fun of how shitty it can be sometimes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea this was a deep well. I just wanted to know if you watched it live or not. So I am so excited.
Sorry.
No. Are you kidding me, Derek? This is exactly what I wanted. Because I truly was like, I'm not going to ask Derek what his experiences were if it's on an earlier episode. Like, I just don't want to like make you tell another story that you've already told. And then I was like, oh wow, I just don't know. And even when we talked about Superman, the animated series, we were so in the animated world that we mentioned Smallville, like, oh, Smallville exists, and that was it.
Yeah.
And so this is thrilling. I loved that, Derek.
Yeah. It show is very important to me. It's definitely one of my favorites. Again, with an asterisk, because there's definitely things the older that I get that it's like, that's not great. But yeah, no, it's very important to me and I love it very deeply and own the series in multiple copies. I own it on VHS that I taped off from NBC. I still have a bunch of those VHS tapes.
Yeah.
I have the original DVD sets that came out. I have the complete series DVD set that came out, and I have the Blu-ray complete series set that came out. So.
Oh my God. Wow. I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Exposing a very vulnerable part of myself right now. My obsession with this show.
It probably won't surprise you to know that I'm not as deep in on this, and that is possibly because of the large bar that you have set before me.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I don't think I saw any of this live. I think that no, I don't even think. I know. I was at a Barnes & Noble and I had an unused amount of a gift card and I saw the first 2 seasons of Smallville on DVD and I was like, this is about the right amount of money. And I just went for it. And it was pretty much sight unseen. I had probably seen advertisements for it.
Yeah,
but
it was advertised a lot when like I said, we didn't even get the network and we knew all about it. And there's like a great like TV guide line of covers that were like hand painted, I think by Alex Ross, that were like, it was a whole set of like 4 that you could get. Like they went so hard on the marketing for this show.
Yeah. But I think maybe a little bit like you starting this, I had no Superman reference. So I didn't know that Lana was actually, I think I talked about this in our animated episode. I didn't know like Lana was a real thing from like established lore in this world. I thought they were just like, we can't use Lois Lane. So neighbor Lana Lang, like, which, and it was stuff like that. But I, of course, knew Superman and I knew Lex Luthor. And really, I mean, we joked about the homoeroticism between these 2 characters.
Yeah.
but I think rival stories are fun when there, especially when there's dramatic irony that you, the audience, know that these two are destined to be enemies, and yet they are friends and sometimes work together but also against each other. And that, I almost didn't need anyone else. And then everything else that came with the story was just good, fun WB show.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, Clark and Lex, their first meeting, their first interaction they have is basically a kiss, because it's Clark pulling him out of a car and giving him CPR. They like, their mouths touch when they first meet, and then Lex is obsessed with him for a very long time after that. So like, you know, it's all there on the text. It's not, nobody's reading into that. And no, we're not the first people who have said that. That's been said for a very long time.
You know, it's interesting you said that, Derek, because I actually was surprised there wasn't more queerness about this out in the world. I think it's there. I'm not like, you're right, we're not inventing this queer reading of this.
Yeah.
But I was a little bit surprised this wasn't a little bit more celebrated. Like I see other shows celebrated for queerness that's not necessarily textual.
I think that there's a lot of baggage with this show from the time that it came out. I think if they were doing this stuff a little bit later, it would be different.
Yeah.
I think that there's baggage with the time in which it took place, and a lot of the criticisms of the show would be, I think, coming from either comic book nerds who didn't like that it wasn't comic booky enough, which I pushed back on. I'm like, I don't think you watched it. Episode 5, there's a dude named Sean Kelvin who's a really cool guy who then gets cold powers. Sorry, that's the most comic booky shit ever. Like, it would do dumb shit like that all the time.
Yeah.
There's that kind of thing. So it got a lot of criticism just for that, because it was not actually having suited up costume superheroes in the early days, though very shortly after it would. But also, I think it was during a time when there was still this attitude of, anytime you would get an adaptation of a franchise thing like this, or a comic book thing especially, you weren't necessarily expecting that there were going to be a million other adaptations or versions coming out. It actually was a little bit precious when you would get a Batman movie. You didn't know if this movie didn't do well, it might be the last Batman movie you ever get. With Superman, it's sort of like, oh, is this just going to be our definitive version of Superman, and this is the only Superman we get for like the next 10 years, and there's no other Supermans? That's not a problem anymore. But at the time, it's like, I think that there was always a lot more weight kind of put on those things to be the definitive adaptation of this comic book character, when the reality is that Smallville was a very specific take. It was like taking these characters and looking at them through a very, very particular lens and through a very particular genre. So it wasn't really allowed. So I think that a lot of the conversations were focused more around, how did this treat Superman lore, rather than how is this telling a story? And then also, I think the other side of it is that the hetero romances on this show were always obviously a very big part of it. And I think a lot of the conversations were about the hetero romances and which girl Clark should be with, and or how toxic are these relationships, and how bad are all these women for Clark, and how bad is Clark to all these women. And so I think that it really was that very particular kind of bubble of fans that were like we are, giving the queer reading. But I think the general conversation was just a lot less focused on it. And I think there was just too much kind of I think kind of buffering that queer reading of it that existed.
Yeah.
And I think that's just sort of persisted. I think that people don't go into that show looking for queer readings as much as I think they do other shows, just because of its history, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? It's so funny, Derek, because I obviously knew when this was on. It's in our notes. Like, I obviously did some research on this, but I guess I didn't connect those dots. That just wasn't where fandoms were at in 2001 when this started.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is funny though, because I do think that it's like, again, one reason I kind of defend this show a lot is that, like, I think it was a little bit wrong-headed to be looking at it from that way, because there was literally like Justice League, the cartoon, was running parallel to this, and that had a lot of Superman stories, or classic Superman stories. Superman Returns comes out a few years into the show. It's not like there wasn't other Superman stuff happening all the time. Like, this was a very particular kind of narrow version of it. It wasn't like the definitive version. So it was always a little weird to me that people didn't really celebrate like the ways in which it was telling new versions of these old stories, you know?
Yeah. I celebrate that, because I think we did talk about this with the animated one. Lois and Clark was the exploration of what's Superman's day job. What's it like that he goes into an office, and isn't it cute when he brushes up against Lois? Whatever. Barf. Jeez.
You
know, Just no. Lois and Clark.
We gotta do. I mean, even with the Dean Cain of it all, I feel like we gotta do a Lois and Clark episode one day because it is fun.
We do. I can swallow Dean Cain. Derek, edit that out.
Oh my God.
But the other thing about the date that I just realized while we were talking, because I rewatched the pilot for this, and there was something in my mind about this, and I was like, oh, Superman's America, America is Superman, blah, blah, blah. I guess I did not connect the dots that this show came out right after 9/11. This is an October 2001 premiere, and so that had to be on the minds of WB executives.
Yeah, and that's the thing the cast talks about a lot. They were shooting early episodes of the show. I forget what episode it was, but they were shooting it like, they were in the first season when 9/11 happened, like on set. And I think that definitely affected them a lot. Yeah, so I think that was definitely part of the show, is sort of the Americana of it all, and the American flags all over it. I don't think that this show is as like jingoistic or patriotic as you would expect it something post 9/11 to be, especially with like a red, white, and blue superhero. But I do think that made people a little, I think that only helped its popularity because people were looking for sort of like a pure American hero to look up to. And Superman is so indicative of that,
I think that's really interesting, Derek, because I think that if you watch Superman media, as you actually have, I think you start to see that that's a really one-directional relationship. I think we put a lot of America onto Superman, and I think when you actually dive into all of the things this supernatural being does, they are sort of antithetical to the like America of it all. It is about ideals and community, but that's all nationhood. There's sort of a rejection of capitalism. There's a rejection. It's everything that LexCorp represents.
Yeah, for sure. I think this episode actually, this show has, there are conservative elements to it. I think that just sort of came from the time, and I think come from John Schneider playing Jonathan Kent in some cases as well. Like some of like the show could be really like weirdly sex negative in a lot of its early years. I think it gets over that at a certain point, but like there's some weird stuff with sex early in the show, I feel like, with how they treat it. But it's honestly it's more liberal than it is conservative most of the time. And I think because its main villains are corporate billionaires, and as a result, the show is very fiercely anti-corporate. Like, I think one of the interesting things about season 5 is that like they touch on it a bit in this episode, that there is like an election storyline where Jonathan Kent and Lex Luthor are both running for state Senate. And the show, I think, takes great pains to never label who is Republican and who is Democrat. And I think part of that is because John Schneider would be like, well, obviously he's a pure-blooded Republican, and I feel like everyone else is like, he's a Democrat because he's running against Luthor. He's running anti-corporate, anti-big business, pro-environmentalism, but the trappings of his campaign are very like bring back the heart and the heartland type stuff, which now is kind of a very Republican kind of refrain. But like I kind of like that the show is, and Lex, you would think, would be like the modern, like, like techie Democrat guy, but I feel like the show toes the line, I think, actually surprisingly well with it, because it's like I feel like if you're watching the show as a conservative, you're like, well, of course Jonathan Kent is a Republican, and if you're watching as a liberal, it's sort of like, well, of course Jonathan Kent is a Democrat. Like, I think that actually kind of towed that line really well, but I think it also speaks to like that you can be someone from the Midwest who's just like a farmer, but still be like running on kind of democratic liberal ideals, which I think is sort of interesting.
Yeah. I also think we're not going to make this a political chat, but the West gets treated so much differently in the sort of red and blue of it all. Mm-hmm. I think that's really been bastardized over the last decade, but it used to, like in Montana, you could not win an election if you were not pro-environment, because the environment pays for everything in the state. Yeah. It's recreation, it's farming, it's everything. So they are the most eco Republicans that exist in the country. Yeah. And Kansas is like that a little bit too,
Yeah, for sure.
But
for sure,
not New York, much different vibes.
Yeah.
It's good to be the king.
On the WB Thursday, the life Lex knows disappears in a flash.
Mom, am I dead?
No, this is your life.
To Lex Luthor, the finest man I know.
I've never been happier.
All of this can be yours if you make the right choices.
Daddy, breakfast!
What happened?
Lexmas, A Smallville Christmas, followed by Everwood on the WB Thursday.
Well, I'm so excited. We are in season 5, episode 9, Lexmas. The original air date on this one was December 8, 2005. And the synopsis per IMDb reads, Lex is shot on Christmas Eve and goes into a coma in which he experiences the happy life he could have if he drops out of the election.
This episode was written by Holly Harold. Smallville was actually one of her earliest credited writing roles, but she wrote a handful of episodes. She wrote on it, became a story editor on the show during seasons 3 through 7. She became a co-producer in her final season. So a big part of this show. I think this was one of her story pitches, if I remember correctly. She would go on to be a writer on Criminal Minds, Warehouse 13, and Heroes Reborn. So a lot of other kind of genre network stuff. She wrote a single episode of the show Arrow that was sort of the semi-related comic book successor. I always found that funny, but I don't think she ever did anything else in the Arrowverse after that one episode of Arrow, funny enough. The episode was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who is very interesting. He actually has had a very long career that began in the 80s with directing films including Halloween 2 and Halloween Resurrection, and also the 1983 film Bad Boys, which is the movie that kind of launched Sean Penn's career. And I think it was the first appearance of like Ali Sheedy and other acters too.
Oh gosh, wow.
I believe so, yeah. And Clancy Brown, who would voice Lex Luthor in the Superman cartoon, I think that was also one of the earliest appearances of that movie.
That is wild. Well, so many good things came out of that we have to take Sean Penn with it. It just sometimes you get good, you get bad.
I love that you're harder on Sean Penn than Dean Cain in this conversation right now.
Oh no, I have a whole list here, Derek. Problematic white guys. It's a list that's 20 pages long.
Jeez. Yeah. And in television, he also has a very, very long career. He's kind of one of those journeyman directors who pops up in everything. He's like got credits on Law and Order SVU and Veronica Mars and a bunch of other stuff. But I want to call it some gimmicks faves.
Yeah.
He directed some Buffy episodes, including the gimmicky episode Normal Again, which was the Buffy in the Institution episode.
I love that episode.
Well, you're in the minority because most people hate that episode. I
disagree.
I think we have to do a gimmicks on it just because a lot of people fucking despise that episode. And I'm with you. I think it's actually really good. And I think people have weird views on what that episode presents, actually.
Oh my God. It's like freshman philosophy class. Like, what if we're dead? What if we're not here? What if nothing's real? Oh, I love that shit.
Yeah. Fun fact, Smallville also did a very similar one where it was Clark hallucinating being in an institution as well. And I think it's actually a really great one.
Let's smoke a bowl and get into some like weird philosophical episodes. Yes.
Also, another gimmicks fave. He directed 2 episodes of our fave, True Calling. Two very good ones too. The episode 2 Pair, like the poker one.
Loved 2 Pair.
And then In the Dark, the one where it's the surprise birthday party episode.
Oh, that's right. And this is the one where the person, she doesn't know who's dead.
Yeah, because they die literally when it's dark. Yeah,
so that was a good episode. That was a good episode.
Yeah, I directed 2 good episodes of that, and he was one of those dudes. If you listen to our True Calling episode, this will make sense to you. But he then ported over from True Calling to Point Pleasant when that show.
Boo.
He also followed Smallville alums Kristen Crook and Eric Johnson over to their other Smallville follow-ups, Beauty and the Beast and Flash Gordon, respectively. So he directed with them as well. And Smallville, I think he had an interesting relationship with it because he directed 7 episodes across seasons 2 through 8, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you scroll through his IMDb, pretty much every other show aside from like 1 or 2, he's only ever directing like 1 or 2 episodes of the show. Smallville was one of the few that he really did stick around a lot for. And one of the ones he directed was yet another gimmicky episode, which was season 6's Promise, which is Lex and Lana's wedding day episode, where you see the wedding day from 3 different perspectives, which is an episode that I think is very underrated. A lot of people also hate that episode, and I think it's actually really fucking brilliant. And on the Talkville podcast, Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling kind of credit Rosenthal with really being the director who inspired and encouraged them to direct their own episodes of Smallville later on in the show.
Wait, that's really cool. I love when directors sort of like see that potential in someone that they're working with and be like, you should give this a shot.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool.
Because that's like Rosenbaum's thing now is directing, right? Like that's his like deal now. He's
both. I mean, yeah, he's a much more director than an actor. I think Tom Welling does more acting and directing now, but during Smallville, like he directed a bunch of episodes. Of
I saw that.
Smallville,
Yeah.
like, starting with this very season that we're in, actually. So, yeah.
Well, the gimmick of this episode, it's a smorgasbord. We have a lot going on here because it's a Christmas episode. Obviously, we're here in December. We wanted to celebrate Christmas. Derek, I didn't even think to bring this up. We started 2024 with Superman, the animated series, and we're wrapping up a Smallville. It has just been a super year for us.
Yeah, and if you want to have the bookend thing too, we came back from this season with the Christmas in July.
That's
right.
right.
That OC episode was also like a Coma Dream Christmas episode.
It was. And don't worry, I will be drawing direct correlations between the coma that people should have investigated more clearly and this, an actually justified coma.
Yeah. Not to be hot take or anything. I think this episode is way better than that OC
Way
episode.
better.
Sorry.
I love Louis dearly, and I loved talking about the OC, so I had so much fun on that, but this is a better coma episode.
Yes.
But it's Christmas. I also love, Derek, how much Christmas it is in this episode. Like, we are not fucking around. There are Christmas trees. There is a Santa. We've got a ghost to tell you what to do, like your Ebenezer Scrooge. We got it all.
Yeah, every set is so Christmas the fuck up. I mean, here's the thing. For every naysayer there is about Smallville, and in a lot of cases they're right. The writing on this show is sometimes not amazing, but what the show always nailed, even when its budgets were slashed out of hell towards the end, the fucking set design and the fucking direction are always impeccably good. Like, bizarrely good, like way too good for this show in some cases. And the set design especially, like they said Christmas, they're like, okay, bet we're gonna give you the most Christmas sets you have ever seen in your life. You are not going to believe every space that you walk into decked out with the most Christmas lights, decorations, eggnog and cookies everywhere, wrapped Christmas presents just hanging from the fucking walls. It's incredible. Yeah, they go all out with the Christmas theme of those one.
It's wonderful. It's beautiful. And then, of course, the thing that brings us here is this is our sort of coma death dream episode. The entire A-plot is taking place in an alternate reality that may or may not be a dream, but either way, it's someone who's on the edge of death. The other thing I like about this, again, not to like diss the OC, but here we use that Vaseline on the camera dream filter to remind you that you're in a dream.
Yeah. Again, this show's always shot incredibly well.
It
always looks really good.
And it's funny because I actually went down a rabbit hole on this. I was like, oh, wow, maybe this wasn't a Vaseline thing. Maybe this was digital. And like digital was just starting when filming would have happened to this. So I think this was probably still pre-digital filming.
No, I think towards the end of the show, it gets a little bit more digital, and you can kind of tell because it's not as textured as these early episodes. But like early in the show, they were literally pumping in like fog machines in certain scenes just to give it a hazy sort of warm effect and stuff like that. Like, very practical show in the early days. Yeah.
This would have been a hard one to act in because they are pointing lights with absolutely no filter on them directly at Michael Rosenbaum's head.
Oh my God,
and that probably, exactly. And it reflected off and blinded poor Christine Crow.
Yeah. The other sides of this, it's sort of this Wonderful Life Christmas Carol fusion. So getting the greatest hits for a gimmicky Christmas episode. Yeah. On the Christmas Carol end, there's a ghost from a corrupt rich man's past trying to use spooky Christmas magic and time travel to teach him to be less corrupt, and also teach him that money isn't everything, and hoping to put him on a better path as a kinder person. But it's a Wonderful Life because the way in which he experiences this isn't literally like seeing his past, present, and future. It's really it's an alternate future to experience an alternate version of their life and seeing how their choices can affect others around them. So an interesting sort of crossing of those two concepts.
I even think there's just a little crumb of Miracle on 34th Street, because Santa is real, Virginia, or whatever that line is.
The B, like the whole B plot is just like Santa is real. Yeah, no, that's so true.
Right.
Yeah. And I also would argue that like there's its own type of gimmick when you have a like edgy subversion on Christmas, because actually this Christmas episode is dark. I think this is a good use of that. I think sometimes that can just be annoying. It's like, yeah, we get it. You hate Christmas. Cool. I think this is a good one because I think it uses the trapping of Christmas for a reason. And I do think that they temper the darkness with the B plot with Clark and Chloe and the actual Santa Claus to sort of sweeten it a little bit. So, you know, it's still subverting usual Christmas episode trappings for one of the show's darker endings with Lex otherwise.
Right. Well, and I think it does a really good job on balance because when we meet Santa, he's dark, while Lex's story is very bright, and then we flip the script at the end, which I think is just it's good storytelling. So well done on the writing and directing of this. I again, you're more of a literate Smallville viewer, but a lot of folks credited this as Lex's turn. And so it is also a monumentally important episode for the character of Lex Luthor.
Yeah, it's the Lex conversation is an interesting one because there's a lot of episodes you can point to as being like, is this the sort of final light switch, right? Is this the final turn? And I do think the show sort of revisits that concept to diminishing returns sometimes, where it's sort of like, you thought he was dark before, now he's really going dark. But I do think that this is the one that I think everyone agrees on is sort of like, he is fundamentally different after this episode, and everything they do with him going forward from this, like there's very little redemptive about him after this episode, pretty much for the most part. So yeah, I think that is a good point. That was very important. I also just think it's funny. It's a show that ran for 10 years. Everything in this episode, all these gimmicky things all get revisited in one way or another. For good and bad. I think like this is the most Christmassy episode of the show. Season 7 is the only other time they do a Christmas episode, but it's really more like a story that takes place on Christmas rather than it being a Christmas episode. There's you know, a couple of characters are trapped in an elevator with a bomb and it's Christmas, you know. It's a fun episode, but it's not a Christmas episode. The It's a Wonderful Life concept is kind of revisited in two different ways, both with Clark. In season 7, there's an episode about where Clark visits for an alternate reality where he had never been born. Not a fan of that episode. I think it's actually kind of a weak one, but I don't really like that season. And then season 10, there's an alternate reality one where it's what if Clark had been raised by the Luthors. So they do that kind of twice. The Christmas Carol concept is used in, I think, a very good episode and very even more directly for the 200th episode of the show, where it's Clark specifically being guided to the past, present, and future to set him on a better path. Nice. I think the episode fucking rocks, actually. So that's a good use of that concept. There's even another episode in season 7 where Lex gets shot and is in a coma again. And there's more Inside of the Mind dream shenanigans again. He's shot like 2 episodes after this too in this season.
Yes.
Like he gets shot so fucking many times in this show. It's actually kind of hilarious.
Shout out to the Smallville wiki, because I noticed that Lex gets shot was underlined in this episode description and clicked on it, and wow, man, Lex is getting shot. I would be a villain too. Right. I would probably be a little bit more pro gun control, but like, you'd think. Just this guy's getting shot every season.
It's pretty incredible. It's not to be a nerd about it, but to be fair, they actually set up like around season 3 or so where they have a reveal that like Lex actually does have a better immune system than most people because of his exposure to in the meteor shower early on. And that really is an easy explanation to just be like, yeah, this motherfucker will live through anything that we put him through and it's fine.
Yeah. And bullets are also slightly magnetically attracted to
Yes, somehow.
Just like very slightly. Like everyone's a really good shot around Lex too.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. No one ever misses, but they always miss vital organs is the thing. He always gets shot in the exact right spot where he can survive. Dude, in season 7, he is shot in the head is the thing. He's literally has a bullet in his brain and he survives it. It's pretty incredible. I mean, he survives it with like, you know, Smallville magic and whatever, like literally someone with a healing factor, but like, you know, he got shot in the head and was alive long enough to have a whole episode about it. So like, you know, it's also a comic book show.
and in also this show's defense, Shonda Rhimes would go on to do it on Scandal. Like she would literally shoot the president in the head. So
in a show that does not have comic book magic behind it. Yeah. Good point. Good point.
Oh, bless. Oh, this is
Yes.
so much fun, Derek. I love this show.
It's so fun. It's so fucking fun. For some context for the making of this episode, I think it is kind of important, I think, for this episode that it had done no holiday episodes for the first 4 seasons. And then this show cranks out 2 of them. There's a Halloween episode that guest stars Carrie Fisher, and it's about Lana joining a sorority of kryptonite vampires led by a girl named Buffy. It's one of the best episodes of television ever made, in my opinion. And then we also got a Christmas episode for the first time as well. And I think it's worth pointing out, because I do think that was kind of a calculated move, because this season is pretty uniquely filled with like tons of things that could be a marketing gimmick. Like they have stuff for the nerds. You have Aquaman shows up for the first time. James Marsters shows up in a recurring role as Brainiac in the season. He's fucking phenomenal in it. And then you have, typical TV viewers and casual audiences. John Schneider obviously was famous for being in Dukes of Hazzard. So finally his co-star shows up and guest stars in an episode. Clark and Lana get together this season. And of course there's the famous 100th episode death tease that everyone knew that there was going to be a big death happening this season. And the 100th episode would be a big monumental thing where a character would die in it. So like all that stuff is very, very easy, like TV marketing stuff. And I think the holiday episodes are part of that. It's so easy to market our Halloween special, our Christmas special,
Right. Especially with taking like, when you even though Lex does get shot a lot, I could even hear the promo that leads into the images that I would expect to see on the WB with that same voiceover that I'm sure listeners have already heard. Like this is one of those, like, it is a really easy way to like raise the stakes on your audience. Especially because I noticed you wrote that season 4 didn't go so well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been a little vindicated by history. I think that season is really good in retrospect, but at the time, like it was the witch season and everybody was like, why are there witches on this show now? What the fuck is this? After like a 3rd season, I think was very celebrated. So, but at the time, season 4 was not particularly well received. And I think considered kind of a drop in the show's quality. Again, I don't agree with fully, but it was kind of like, I equate it to Buffy season 4, where like the arc maybe wasn't as strong as the first 3, but like it has a lot of genius standalone episodes. Right. But if you're watching week to week for this ongoing storyline, the storyline is a little bit exhausting. And again, there's magic and witches all of a sudden, which the show had never done before. So it makes sense why people are sort of like a little bit out on the show at that point. So season 5, I think, had to be kind of a rebound in one way or another. And also I think like Al and Miles, the series creators, like when they initially pitched the show, it was with a 5-year plan. So like they're sort of like going into the 5th season, like it is entirely possible this will be the final season of the show. And it does kind of make sense. They just graduated high school. Like how much longer can you go beyond that? It's not like we can go for another 6 years. That seems ridiculous. So they kind of, I think, use that post high school setting as a reason to radically kind of shift the show, kind of a soft reboot in a way. Like the stories are a little more mature and a little darker. There's a lot more of a harder sci-fi edge. There's a lot more about alien invasion stuff. And they tell a lot of the stories that they've been wanting to tell the entire time that they hadn't had a chance to yet, in the event that the series would end by the end of that season, And again, that includes Halloween and Christmas episodes that they hadn't had a chance to do yet. Yeah. I think there's also the factor that the WB had kind of took a risk by moving Smallville to Thursdays when it had been on, I think, Tuesdays and then Wednesdays for a while. And they put it up against stuff like Alias and the OC and Survivor, which were big hits. And so they're like, we need to make sure that this show does well for either its final season or to get it removed, one or the other. We didn't make it too well. So again, eye-catching marketing gimmicks. And this would come to be known as the final season of the WB, which I think was in conversations at the time. And so if Smallville was going to be renewed for a 6th season, which I think they found out, I think around the 100th episode is when it was like official that they were going to be renewed. It would have to be an anchor for the new network that the WB would become when it becomes the CW. So the show would need to be strong, both to justify its existence further and to be this anchor of this new network that was coming out the following season. So again, marketing gimmicks, get people to watch, and it did pay off. The season is very well regarded. It's generally considered one of the best seasons of the show. And at the time, people were loving it and felt like it was a rebound for it. Ratings were higher than season 4, and it even beat some of the bigger networks sometimes, which doesn't happen often with the WB, That's fascinating because I feel like I came to this so late from all of this. So it's really funny because I've made it through season 4. I don't remember
being off-put by anything in
When you're
season
watching
4.
it on a binge, it's fun as shit.
Okay,
Is the
great,
thing. I think that
great,
season
okay.
rocks, but when you're watching it week to week over the
okay.
course from like September to May, that the magic Kryptonian stones and witches storyline does
All right.
feel a little bit exhausting at a certain point when you're not binging it. I will give
All
it
right.
tons of credit to that.
Yeah. And I mean, I like Smallville, but Smallville was definitely something that I feel like I could put on and play my Game Boy. Like, I think
for
this
sure.
was like my go-to Game Boy. I was playing Pokemon Ruby, I'm sure. Like,
Yeah.
I think that I was just like this was a perfect afternoon for me, was to pop one of these DVDs in and just like pay attention, but not like pay lost attention.
Right. Sure. And also, speaking of like magic and wishes, I do think that because season 4 was the first time that they really did anything truly magical before, which establishes that there is magic in the reality of the show, which means that I think it's a little bit less out of left field to do an episode with like a dream ghost and literally Santa Claus. Because at this point, the show had already kind of gone off the rails in that direction anyway and just become a fantasy. So why not embrace the fantasy of it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the Lex and Lana relationship of it all, which, people who were online at the time had very strong opinions about, but I do think that is an important part of this episode because, when you have a show that is founded a lot on like soap opera and especially the kind of teen soap in the early days, there's a lot about like who's going to hook up with who. And the early days of the show, there was a sort of idea of the trifecta of Clark, Lana, and Lex. And it was honestly has always been surprising that they went so long without never rearranging that combination and having Lex hook up with Lana. It really does take 5 years for them to do that. And Holly Harold says in the official season 5 companion book, which was written by that previous Gimmicks guest, Craig Byrne, by the way, she says in that book that like, they, as writers, always kind of knew that Lex was in love with Lana. That had been kind of subtext in the show. And you can definitely, it is clear when you watch early days of the show that there is some kind of spark. But I think they just simply didn't know how they were going to play out on screen together because they had never paired them together before. So in a weird way, this episode was kind of like their trial for that, to just be like, if we put Michael Rosenbaum and Kristen Crook together and just let them be a happy couple, what would that look like? And I think they see it in a sort of like their chemistry is amazing. And Rosenbaum talks about on Talkville that he loved working with her because this was the most that he'd really been able to truly work with her as an actor. Why not pair them together then? And so they end up pairing them together at the end of this season.
This is also shocking because, again, I think I've outed myself as not like paying super close attention to this, but I think that when you write a villain, villains are motivated by the love of one person.
Right.
That's like their thing. Heroes have to be motivated by like the love of everyone.
Right. Sure.
And like this is like this feels like, yeah, of course Lex is obsessed with Lana. Like,
right. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Right. I think, shippers online obviously had strong opinions in one direction or another, but I think like, but I can also kind of understand why it can be sort of a controversial touch point for the show, because it's like you're saying, narratively, it seems so obvious just for the drama of it all. And for if a character is going down a more villainous path, like part of that villainy can just be like, fuck my ex-friend's feelings. I'm going to make sure I hook up with his ex-girlfriend, So I think it makes a lot of sense. I do think the other side of it, a thing that I appreciate that the show does that I think people online, struggle with a lot, is that when they do get together, it's after Lex is like pretty dark. So their relationship is very toxic and like, it's not fun to watch at certain points. Like, I think that it kind of, the season after this, I think I have a lot of love for and appreciation for, but I don't love revisiting it because it's kind of a slog because the Lex Lana relationship is very upsetting to watch. But I kind of appreciate that they go for that because it's like, it would be a toxic relationship, and it is. And the repercussions of that fucked up relationship are a pretty major part of the show for like years after this,
Yeah.
And I appreciate that the show goes there, that like, if you're going to have a villain,
he should be a villain.
He should be a villain, and that's going to include not being pretty shitty in the relationship that he's in.
Yes.
Even when it's like two hot people that you kind of do want to see kiss,
So fucking hot. These two. I loved all of the dream sequences because they are just the fucking cutest couple in the entire world.
Yeah.
I didn't even mind that this is one of the worst pregnancy suits I've ever seen. It was pretty bad. But like, they are so cute together. And I I like Welling. I think he's a great actor. I think he looks good next to Crook, but that she just has to carry a box around with her at all times when they're together.
Yeah.
Because of the substantial height difference. It was great seeing like Lana stand next to Lex, and I was like, you two go together. This is great.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, you're not standing next to a 7 foot tall man.
Thank you.
It is nice. Yeah. I do think that there's an argument that, Lex and Lana have better chemistry together than Clark and Lana
I think
do.
so.
I think
So. But I think it's all set up here in this episode, which is what makes this one an exciting one to talk about, because, Lex is going through that like hero's journey, except he's doing it as a villain. And so he learns a lesson at the end of this, but I think that informs that later relationship in a really important way. And I'm excited to dig into it.
For sure.
Well, we start in Granville, Kansas. Lex is meeting with his hired tough Griff, who is going to help bring down Jonathan Kent, whether he has to fabricate evidence or find it himself. But Lex asks for 24 hours to consider his options. And on the way back to his car, Lex gets mugged and shot twice.
Yes. Did you know about the election storyline, or did you just kind of go into it being like, what are they talking about?
See, here's the thing. I think I told you when we were planning this episode that I didn't remember this, so I probably didn't make it in my watch through. And then I remembered that I had seen the Noir episode, so I obviously had watched this, and it just didn't take up precious RAM. So yes, I remembered the election story fully.
Okay.
None of this was a surprise, but I think that even because Mike was watching it with me, he had no questions. He was like, great, there's something going on. We're going to hire this dude. Let's move. Like this
I think it's very shortly after this that they then have the exposition of like, Jonathan, it's wild that you're running for Senate. It's so stressful. Like, if you don't understand in this opening, then you retroactively will understand it like 2 minutes later.
It's a great envelope. I mean, the meat of the A story has only a toe in the water for this. I would almost call this a C story, but what it is an envelope of the episode. It like contains everything that's going on because there's a beginning and an end to it. And it is a really smart way of doing it. And because of how visually it's told, Granville is dark with these like random trash cans on fire. I have no idea where this is supposed to be.
That's such a good point. I didn't even notice that.
Because Derek, Granville, Kansas is not far from where Mike was born. And
that is
are
hysterical.
no trash cans with fire in them. It's farms. Whatever, it's fine. It's evocative. And then the last scene is also with Griff. It's also in a dark hospital room, but all the middle A story is so bright and happy and fun. So it works visually, it works thematically, and it works plot-wise. I love it.
The lighting on this show, or the color palette and lighting on this show is always really stunning. And they were very, I mean, if you want a good comparison for like why a lot of TV nowadays looks really flat compared to old stuff, like I think you can look at Smallville because they weren't inventing anything new, but I think they were very attentive to different settings are just going to be colored and lit differently. And you compare most scenes in Smallville, the town or on the Kent farm are lots of oranges, lots of like bright soft light and that haze that they pump in from the fog machine. And then everything in like Metropolis or in a city or something like this, darkly lit, heavier shadows, blue tint to it, very steel set design, very cold set design, no haze whatsoever. And again, that's very simple. If you're like no filmmaking, you're sort of like, yeah, no shit. Obviously you do it like that. But like, you don't see that dichotomy on TV anymore. Like this show, I think just makes it very apparent because it's a very highly colorful, saturated show. Yeah. And I just think it's such a good example of like what that type of like lighting and color and set design can do for a show that again, you don't really see even in like films as much now where everything is very flat and untextured and unsaturated. But anyway.
But I will tell you, Derek, I didn't remember Griff, and I think I just filled in the blank that he's just kind of he's there to move this envelope plot along. We're not like...
he's only on like 2 episodes. It's not that big of a deal. I think he gets killed off in the next one. His actor Adrian Holmes does show up a bunch, though. He's like in season 9 as a recurring Kryptonian character, which is
good for him. Yeah. He's super cute. He's a great looking dude, but I just didn't remember him.
Yeah. One of these muggers that shoots Lex, though, this is just very funny. One of these muggers that shoots Lex Jorgito Vargas Jr. is the actor. I just think it's funny because a few years before he's on this, he played Blake the Navy Ranger on Power Rangers Ninja Storm. And then the next season, he voices the Japanese Blue Ranger in the Power Rangers Dino Thunder episode that we covered on Gimmicks a few years ago called Lost and Found in Translation.
No way.
Yeah. So he's one of the few Gimmicks crossover actors, unexpectedly.
Good for him. Oh,
Yeah.
I love you, Jorgito Vargas Jr.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember which mugger you were. I guess one was a woman, so you were the not woman mugger.
Yeah. It's fine. He doesn't mean it's a small role, but it's obviously an important one.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had lines. I mean, the woman mugger only shot Lex, so
Yeah.
get your paycheck, dude.
Yeah. I like the use. I'm sure we'll touch on this later, but I like the use of Christmas music throughout this episode because they almost exclusively use Christmas songs when things are like weird and dark. And I really like the sort of spirit of Christmas song playing softly as Lex like falls over in slow motion after getting shot twice. I mean, again, it's easy for like dark, twisted Christmas things to do where it's like happy, peppy Christmas music to dark things happening. But I think this episode uses it really effectively.
It's under the whole conversation with Griff, so it's like this like diabolical, we're going to take out Jonathan Kent, like good for you. But and like underneath it's like ching 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 ching. Like it's just got this like nice little. I know it wasn't actually jingle bells in this song, but I recognized it as a Christmas song, and it is discordant, which is good. If you want to set your viewer on edge, that's what you do, and then you're going to go into an alternate reality. That's great.
Yeah,
great storytelling.
Give me 24 hours.
The old man wouldn't hesitate.
Before I go down the path you're proposing, I want to consider all of my options.
What's the matter, Lex? Holiday spirit got you all sentimental?
My father gets wind that we met. You're not going to make it to New Year's, Griff.
Well, then we enter our coma dream. Lex wakes up in a bed next to Lana, and a small boy comes in and jumps on the bed. That's when Lana gets up, and we can see that she is capital P. Preggers. Lex wonders where he is, and a vision of his mother appears to tell him that this is how things could be if he, quote, makes the right choices. But in the real world, we see Lex prone on the ground, dying.
First of all, his mom showing up is like literally a jump scare. Like it is treated like he
Yes,
closes,
that's right.
like he opens the mirror to the the medicine cabinet and then closes it, and she's suddenly there. Like it is played like a true jump scare. It's so funny.
Yeah, I think it's great. Have we met his mother before?
Yes,
I know it's his mother because he instantly is like mom. But I was like, am I supposed to have an emotional resonance with this actor?
Yes. So she first appears in season 3, in one of the best episodes of the show, in the episode Memoria, where like you are again kind of in Lex's memories in that episode. And it's a really effective one. That's an episode that like I highly recommend anyone watch at any given time because it's just a really beautiful, short, dark, sad short story that I think is a really big precursor to this one because it's very much about his relationship with his baby brother and his mom being like the worst case of postpartum depression you've ever seen, and it's very fucked up. So that's a very memorable one, so you would recognize her from that one. This is her first appearance. I think she's like in a deleted scene in season 4, but that obviously doesn't air. So this is actually her first appearance since that very memorable, evocative first appearance. So I actually think I'm glad you asked that, because I think that context is useful if you're watching through the show, because it is pretty monumental that you see this character again and actually get to see adult Lex interacting with her after seeing her in a very pivotal episode a couple of years before.
Right. We go straight from Lex on the ground into these opening credits. And I gotta say, because I didn't quite clock this, but season 5 is when we have these new opening credits that will last through the end of the series run. And this is their final form. They are perfect now. And nothing against season 1 through 4 credits. They're great. But the sort of 3D things flying at you is so perfect middle 2000s. Like this I loved these credits, Derek.
Yeah. Well, and I think it kind of represents the show's shift to more action storytelling. The first 4 feel very teen soap opera on the WB in 2001 to 2002, which I think works for the show great. But this one, it's I think they even remixed the song lightly to like emphasize the percussion, like drum beat in it more than in the first 4 seasons. So like the action of it all is very front and center, and it gets more and more actiony in these credits as it goes along. But yeah, I think that they're really fun and really unique. I've never seen opening credits that look like the Smallville season 5 to 10 opening credits look.
Oh,
it's
they're
pretty
so
great.
good. I watched a YouTube compilation of them and I just let it keep going. Like I was just like, these are great. I'm going to watch this all the way to the end.
Really fun and like really well edited.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that they pull out for them is really, really cool. And they do some fun things with them as the cast changes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say though, and I knew John Glover was in this, but wow, John Glover's hair has also evolved with these credits. This is the most permed hair that John Glover will have for so far. Like it used to be a cute little blowout, and now he is mad scientist crazy, and I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
So we cut to the Kent farmhouse with Martha and Jonathan, where, like I mentioned before, they're discussing his run for state senate as they're preparing for a holiday party. So you get that information out there if you didn't know it already. Lana and Clark are decorating the tree and share a kiss, but before they can share another one, there's a concerned call from Chloe at the Daily Planet. Here is my question to you, David.
Go
when
for it.
Clark's phone calls, his cell phone rings jingle bells. And I know that, like, changing your ringtone is out of fashion now. It was much bigger, in 2005, everyone had ringtones. Did you ever change your ringtones for the holidays to a Christmas song though?
Oh my God, I did.
Really?
Derek.
I didn't know that anyone ever did that.
Yeah, I did. I even changed my, that thing where you would call someone and it would play a song instead of ringing, which actually condemns me to hell that I used. I changed that for the holidays too, so that it would play Grandma Gets Hand Over a Reindeer until I picked up the phone.
Incredible. I mean, I had cell phones play songs too, so I can't, but I usually, but I would keep them for like a while. I wouldn't change them for like seasonal types. That's just so funny to me. Okay. Well, you know what? Clark, I guess, is just normal, or like you, maybe you're both weird.
No one should have their phone ever off mute now. I think we've now evolved as a society.
Right.
Like,
sure.
If a phone rings, I freak out. I'm like, where is this coming from? What's happening? Mike to this day has specific ringtones for different people set up on his phone, which is a thing that I didn't even know you could do. Because I would say you should just text me, like don't call.
Yeah. It's so funny to me. It's so funny.
I do think that because we needed to establish that Jonathan Kent is running for Congress, I think this is the most adorable / schlockiest lines in the script of being like, politicians have their hand in the cookie jar enough, honey.
Yeah, as he then grabs a cookie and eats it. So funny, he's a politician now.
Sir, you're right. These are for the party. Besides, we have enough politicians with their hands in the cookie jar.
Martha. Look, I know you're not sold on the whole idea of me running for state senate.
Not sold would be an understatement.
But it is Christmas Eve. See? Can we please not talk about that?
God. If it wasn't constantly on that 11 for the episode, I would have hated this, but because it just fits, it's so wonderful and perfect.
Yeah. And again, I think the way that they treat the election stuff, it's always kind of a little bit like that because, again, they don't want to get into like real politics to alienate anyone. It's just more like Jonathan is the good politician because he hates big money in politics. And don't we all kind of hate that?
Right,
there you go. You're on his side,
And I mean, we're not going to spend really much time with her, but like Annette O'Toole, just
my God.
Goddess, goddess.
I make the case that she's the best actor on this show, actually. I mean, and honestly, that is very high praise because like that's up against John Glover and Rosenbaum, who are all incredibly good. I think John Glover maybe edges Annette O'Toole out sometimes, but I think he's a little bit more just because he has less opportunities to play different emotions. He always kind of has to be
evil.
he always has to be a manipulative bastard, Lionel Luthor. So he's an amazing actor. But I think Martha Kent oftentimes and could easily be a pretty like flat character. And I really think the only reason that she works as well as she does in this show is because of Annette O'Toole and the choices that she makes. I mean, I watched I just kept watching after watching this episode yesterday and got through the 100th episode where Jonathan Kent, spoiler, dies. And I will never not feel like a deep pain in my soul when she sees Jonathan dying, and it is all Annette O'Toole's performance of like the screaming and crying and the "oh no, please not yet" that she gives, that I wonder if was ad-libbed, honestly. Like, she gives her all in this show, even when she's given like horrendous material. And I think that they only gave her more material because of how good she was ultimately. Yeah. Great person in real life too. I love her.
Yeah. Oh my God. Fabulous. And there was a time that I felt like I couldn't turn on TBS without seeing her on some like probably usually made for TV movies, which is fine. Get your check. But like, she was just ubiquitous to my childhood.
Yeah. She's incredible. But there's the Annette O'Toole soapbox for now, because we don't really get a whole lot of her in this episode. Sorry, Annette. Bye. Yeah. You'll show up again like towards the end. So yeah, we cut to Lex being wheeled into a hospital. So they do establish that he's been picked up and is being treated now. But that transitions us back to the dream sequence, where we kind of learn what the setting of this dream is, where it's basically been 7 years since his father cut him off. And the shooting that we were witnessing has happened, and he apparently like made some kind of choice at a certain point. And then his life changed after being shot. And so it's basically supposed to be 7 years after the episode that we're watching right now. And he and Lana have been together during that period after his father's cut him off.
Yeah. And I think that keen listeners will remember that on our Q&A episode, I said I don't like dream sequences, but this ascends all of that because we are playing the jauntiest Christmas/confusing, I don't know what I'm doing here in this dream music. The music sells this scene because it's Rosenbaum like looking around being like, what the fuck am I doing here? While like goofy ass music plays in the background.
Try and be back by 6 so we can make it to the Kent's party.
The Kents?
And this year, try and remember that we're on a budget.
What? We have a budget?
Lex, it's been 7 years since your father cut up your platinum card. I think it's time to embrace the middle-class lifestyle.
Daddy, let's go!
7 years? 7 years out.
The Blu-ray subtitles for this, I'm glad you mentioned that because I also wrote this down. The Blu-ray subtitles say, in brackets, quirky, pensive music playing.
It is the quirkiest, pensive music. I'm actually going to make this Derek's ringtone when he never calls me. Like, this will be what plays because I'll be confused that you're calling me on the phone.
Sure.
Oh, I loved it. And even though it is, I think that it probably is just generic, quirky, jaunty music, there was something Christmassy about it.
Like the tinkling of it,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Or I knew I've said a Christmas episode so that I was reverse engineering it. Who knows?
Yeah. I think it's also, it's a minor thing, but like, I think they do a good job with the costuming and what Lex is driving, because the fact that he's driving a small station wagon when it's always been a core part of his character that he drives like cool cars and the Porsches and shit like that. He's always dressed really really slick, and in this one he's just in like jeans and a t-shirt and a jacket. You know, like I think that's a really smart choice. And then that brings us to the Christmas tree market in the stream, where Lex and his son Alex are looking at trees when they bump into Clark and Chloe, who has these beautiful extensions. They just give her long flowing hair.
Well, sometimes in an alternate reality, you just have to wear some extra hair, Derek. Like,
pretty much.
That's just how it works.
They didn't want to give them old age makeup, so they're like 7 years. The only thing that's changed is she
there was a time skip. Yeah. And you don't have to worry about that with Lex because he's bald.
Right.
Even though I'm familiar with the time skip and it is important for the plot, I sort of kept forgetting about the time skip of it all because it almost doesn't matter. It doesn't
really matter very much. Yeah. I think the time skip is only there just to give a reason for how Lex and Lana already have a long time relationship, and she's pregnant and already has like a small child. So,
and that there's the length of time that the falling out between him and his father has been, which will be important.
Right. Yeah. It's important. And because otherwise, if this is sort of taking place in the real world, then it's sort of like, oh, so Lex got with this 14-year-old when he was like 21. You know, they have to have the time skip to allow them to have gotten together as adults, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's actually, I think it's a smart choice. And really this whole scene is there to establish that in this alternate reality, like, Lex has a good relationship with both Clark and Chloe, who at this point in the show, it's very, very broken. Like they are just pretty much straight up enemies at this point in the show. Like Alex calls Clark Uncle Clark, and they have a fun little moment where he like flies him around, you know, which is a fun Superman flies reference. Clark is a full-fledged reporter at the Daily Planet. Chloe wrote a tell-all book about Luthor Corp, you know, and it's all with Lex's help, and they're all very thankful to him and how big of a part his life is, which is, again, something that he's wanted throughout the whole show, is just to have friends and family who love him, but he like never lets that happen because of his own personal issues and stuff that he has.
Right.
There's a couple things about this. This is just fucking completely outside of the conversation, but if you're very online with Smallville fandom, you know this. So Chloe's name is never spoken in the stream. You know who she is because you're familiar with the character. Her name is never spoken, and Lois just straight up does not appear in this episode and is not mentioned at all, which is a crime. Erica Durance is great.
Oh my God, I love
she's
her.
on this episode. She's my favorite Lois Lane of all time. Sorry. She's fucking phenomenal as Lois. But yeah, so Chloe's name's never spoken. Lois has never appeared or mentioned. And apparently, according to Holly Harrell, the episode writer, that was intentional as a reference to this very, very bizarre. But again, if you were online at the time in the Smallville fandom, you knew this. There's a very prevalent, hilarious, in my opinion, fan theory known as the Chlois theory, that Chloe Sullivan was secretly the canon Lois Lane all along, and that at some point in the show, the Erica Durance's Lois would eventually die, and that her cousin Chloe would take up her name and mantle somehow and be known as the future Lois Lane. Because people liked that, like Chloe as a character, liked that Chloe was already a journalist and wanted to see her together with Clark and not this like other Lois Lane that they didn't really like as much. They didn't feel was as Lois Laney, which I think is a misunderstanding of who Lois is, because this Lois is like the most Lois who ever Lois, and I love her for it. But you know, and that fan theory was like so prevalent that like that reference was in here to just be like, what if in 7 years you were right and this Chloe is just Lois Lane? And then like in season 9, like they were still making references because there's an episode in season 9 where Chloe is magically transformed into Lois for an episode just for fun. And that's also just sort of like, what if it happened? Like. I think it's just so silly and hilarious that was a thing that people were thinking.
Well, and who could have known, but really glad that didn't happen with everything that happened way after the show came out.
Unfortunately, yeah. Like, I don't know that we need to talk about the Allison Mack at all. I think she's a wonderful actor, was wonderful on this show. It's very tragic that her life went in the direction that it did, and she made a lot like Lex in this episode. At a certain point in her life, decided to make some choices that were pretty horrendous and greatly negatively affected many people. And, you know, I hope that she's getting the help that she needs right now. And she's definitely paying for all the horrendous things she did to people. So really unfortunate. But, you know, the character of Chloe Sullivan, I think, is pretty great. So
and she does a good job acting. So like
she's great.
That's falter what's on the page. You know,
that's I think what's tragic about it is that she could have had a really great career, and she destroyed it for herself by making some really horrendous choices to join a cult. So
well. And this is one of the few instances of cult where the man was actually held responsible too. So we do like that.
That's true. That's true.
And so I think you have to hold people in power responsible, and Mac was part of that. So
yeah. To get off of this subject, I do think one thing that's sort of interesting to me about this episode that I'll talk about it a little bit later too, that like, you know, it's obviously, as these things often are, you're never fully sure, is this just a dream? Is this actually a real vision from a real ghost or something? You don't really know. And I think that's good and smart and fine. But I do think that there's little elements of like, things you could rationalize or not that like lend credence to if it's a real future or just a dream. And I think that it actually is really interesting that like for all the Superman of it all and the many anvils that they throw down of Superman references, they do flash forward 7 years, and this Clark Kent is not wearing the Clark Kent glasses. And I think part of that is just because they didn't want it. This is supposed to be about Lex, not Clark. And it would be distracting if Clark shows up playing the future Clark Kent, because then it turns into a Superman reference, not a Lex thing.
Right.
So I think it was a smart move to just not address that. But I do think then it kind of lends credence to like, this could just be a dream, because
Could be just a dream.
For all Lex knows, this is how Clark would grow up to be. There's also just been this long story in this first half of the season that it's a long story, but like it is prophesized that someone close to Clark will die. Both Lana and Jonathan are alive in this episode. You could argue that maybe that like Lois is never mentioned because maybe she's the one who died. But also I think you could argue that it's just Lex doesn't know that, and this is Lex's dream, and this is his way sort of processing these feelings. And so it's not actually an accurate future. It's just that this is sort of how Lex perceives the people around him and where they could be in the future potentially. You know?
Yeah, it's his dead neurons firing their last electrical impulses, and he doesn't know Lois.
Yeah, that's kind of how I view it. And again, you could rationalize that, like, well, maybe Clark never has to become Superman if Lex is good or something like that. I don't know, but like I think that's sort of that goes a little bit beyond what the episode's doing. I think that it's sort of like honestly just lends credence that this truly is Lex's dream and how he's manifesting these feelings and this thought process. You know, as he's on the edge of death, that drives him to the choice he makes, which then allows it to be more his choice, I think, rather than it being any sort of interception from Christmas magic, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, back in reality, Lex's father, Lionel Luthor, arrives in the hospital, and when the doctor tells him his son will never walk again, Lionel demands that he is prepped for transport to a facility where someone will be willing to operate on him.
Mm-hmm.
Daddy, may I mean, John Glover is fantastic.
If we could relieve the pressure, we might...
No, we are going to do it, Doctor. Now.
Mr. Luthor, Lex hasn't stabilized yet. An operation at this stage could kill him.
My son is going to walk, Doctor.
I don't know if I ever talked about this story on the last gimmicks or anything, but I met John Glover at a convention a few years back. And I told him that I was like, I had a huge crush on you when you played
as you
Lionel
should.
Luthor. And he just said, "Ooh, you're a bad boy, aren't you?" We got our picture together. He's a great guy. He's wonderful. Gay icon.
Gay icon. I think he's talked about that he slept with Freddie Mercury. I think that's like one of his like go-to cocktail stories.
I'm not surprised. I've seen him. Like, he uploaded and then very quickly deleted like just like gay nudes on his Instagram one time, not of him or his husband, but just of like someone else one time. And I remember people being like, what you doing, John? And then it was very quickly deleted. So no, he is definitely a horny gay motherfucker.
Good for you, man.
And
Good
I
for you.
love him for that. And I believe that he had some fights with John Schneider in real life, probably in part because of that. So,
hey,
yeah.
Guess who made it to season 6, Schneider? Hey. He is so great. I love how campy he is, even in these moments of like, you must move my son. It's great. I love him. I think he is, in a lot of ways, Lex is a complicated villain and Lionel is a very easy villain. And I love that together. I mean, we talked a little bit about this in True Calling when we talked about Jason Priestley and his dad. I think that especially not his dad, his Drew's dad. There is sort of this like older man as a simple villain and younger man as a complicated villain that is a really nice dynamic that I like.
Absolutely.
It's not important, but there are 2 named doctors in this episode. The first one is Dr. Scanlon. We get here. It's the name of one of the producers. I always think it's kind of fun when stuff like that happens.
Yeah, it is fun. And that character appears many times too. So that becomes a established character. Yeah. Then we get back to the B story at the Daily Planet, where Chloe is explaining her emergency to Clark, which is actually that there are just simply too many donations.
Too many toys.
From Toys for Tots. There's too many toys. Oh no.
Oh,
that's the
Derek.
emergency. So many toys. And apparently the Teamsters are on strike, which I'm like, I mean, good for them, sure.
Yeah, good for them.
Chloe's like, I can't believe they'd be on strike on Christmas Eve of all times. And I'm like, that's when they should be on strike, actually.
I was like, Chloe girl, you're getting a little close to being a union buster here. What's your deal? She very specifically goes on her way to say, like, we will not cross the picket line or whatever it was. Yeah. But like, this is a on the
But
edge
she's like
attitude, girl.
pretty mad about it. It's sort of like they could at least not be on strike today, right? And I'm like, do you not understand how strikes work, girl? Like, come on.
Oh no.
Yeah. I mean, I do understand that it's like we're trying to do charity and give gifts to children in need. So like, it would be nice if people were around, but also it's not their fault. They went on strike.
Right.
So,
right.
But either way, that's why Clark's here, because he's fucking Superman. He's faster than a speeding bullet. He can deliver a bunch of toys, and he gets to be a Superman. I think if I have one gripe with this episode, I do think that I think that they played Clark a little bit too annoyed at the prospect of delivering toys in this scene, which he gets over immediately. But it's very much sort of like, oh, but me and Lana, we're going to celebrate Christmas together. And Chloe has to like convince him of it. And I don't like that. I think that that's the show struggles with sometimes, is that they try to, I think they wrote a version of him that is like, you know, it's sort of like, wouldn't it be interesting if Superman has like, is young and has these like teenage impulses that he has to grow out of, and like he can be kind of whiny sometimes. And I think that's like well observed about real people. But I think then it's sort of like, then sometimes they get a little too far away from the Superman of it all. And it's sort of like, the dude's not like a piece of shit though. Like I do think that any Superman at any given point would be happy to be delivering toys to children.
Yeah.
And I think by the end of the show, he's very fully there. They do, to their credit, like let him grow out of that stuff and write him a lot better as an adult Superman. But like at this point, it's just sort of like later in the episode, he's happily doing it. So like you could have had him be more happy about it in this one and not push back so much.
Yeah, I could have even seen, just because Welling could do it so goofy, like put on the Santa cap and be like, oh my God, I get to play Santa tonight. Like I think you could have gone the other direction on it, and it might have been a little bit more fun.
I think so too. I think that's my one big gripe with it. I don't like how he initially treats it. Cause again, he doesn't have those feelings later on in the episode. So why does he now, you know?
Yeah. Before we start delivering packages, we get a couple great reminders that it is 2005. The first one is Toys for Tots. This looks like Toys R Us. Oh, bless, I wish. And then the second one, I map quested you all these addresses.
Beautiful.
Derek, I was so happy I had the captions on, because I was like, oh my God, I don't think I would have known what she said. Like, truly and honestly.
Yeah, I remember MapQuest. Does MapQuest still
remember
exist?
MapQuest.
If you go to mapquest.com, what happens?
What happens? We're doing it live, listeners.
Oh, it's just like another Google Maps.
MapQuest still exists. You know what? This doesn't surprise me, because I think I've actually heard Mike talk about this. When he worked for the state, they required MapQuest for reimbursements for mileage, because that's what was like written into the rules.
Whoa.
And so I bet there are enough people who still do this, probably just for mileage.
Is it possible that MapQuest is like functions better than Google in some ways? Maybe because maybe it just does like mileage based on like what the atlas says, rather than like traffic and AI nonsense like that. Yeah,
this is fascinating.
Have to experiment, use MapQuest at some point just to see how it works.
But yeah, just in case you're like 18 years old, we used to print off directions from MapQuest. I went on whole road trips with like binders full of these things. And it felt very normal, because it was better than my parents, who just pulled out an atlas. Right.
Like it feels, I mean, that was sort of like, wow, we can like look up directions to places instead of having to figure it out on a map.
Right.
Like, yeah, that was the innovation at the time. It's so, yeah. Well, then, so we have a fun little sequence of Clark playing Santa. I don't know how he got into these houses. I guess he just broke into every single one of them. But delivering presents, there's a nice bit where he like eats the milk and cookies. I think it's very, very cute. And then at one point, he sees that there's a Santa on a roof nearby that, on the edge, clearly stumbling, clearly drinking. It looks like he's gonna either fall and or jump.
Yeah.
So then we get this sequence of him meeting this man dressed as Santa on the roof.
Well, why don't you have a seat? You can always jump later.
Yeah, I guess you're right. After all, it's not like I've got somewhere to be.
Listen, I don't want to be nosy, but I was just wondering, Santa, what are you doing up here? I mean, why are you gonna jump?
Give me one good reason why I shouldn't. You can't, can you? Got a good look at the world lately? So take, bitch.
And this is a classic Superman thing of like talking someone off of a ledge.
Right. Literally. Yeah.
Literally. I mean, yeah, literally. Like, I mean, the whole thing is Clark just trying to like, I think it's played really well too. Cause Clark's just like, hey buddy, what's going on? How are you doing? And this guy, this is when we get like all anyone does these days is take, bitch. The spirit of Christmas is dead. And, what's the point of going on living if this is what life is now, essentially? And so Clark sits and talks with him.
Yeah, I like it because I do, again, like the balance of the B story having this like dark moment here. I didn't put it in the notes, but the whole reason Clark even notices him is that he is interrupted by a little child who has come downstairs to be like, you're not Santa. So when we think about the bag of tricks that we are writing this episode for as like homages, this is like a Grinch who stole Christmas moment, even in this, like, it's just, I love how many things there are here. Yeah. And I think Kenneth Welsh, who plays this, like, I think in the credits is credited as drunk Santa. And also like awesome. He is really good. And he's like he is a Canadian standby. Like he has been on everything on the WB.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, he's really fun. He's very, very fun. Yeah.
I liked all this. I liked Clark sitting with him. I liked that it wasn't a Superman intervention until later. And then I even like how that was created.
Yeah, right. No, they hold off on any of the superheroing stuff until they really needed to play it for like one almost kind of a joke in a way. So
yeah. Don't forget, this is a Superman show.
Right.
We do cut back to the hospital to show that Lionel is back with his fleet of paramedics to airlift him to the Davis Clinic in Metropolis. I've never really understood the distance between Smallville and Metropolis. And
it's inconsistent. It's
okay, great.
Deeply inconsistent. It absolutely depends on the episode and the era of the show, because there is a certain point when, just because of the sets that they have, they still have to have people living in their like pre-existing Kent farm, but also working a 9 to 5 in Metropolis, even though previously it's sort of like, it's a 6-hour round trip to Metropolis. Like obviously you wouldn't be commuting. I mean, I guess some people do that when they live in DC, they commute like 3 hours, but like these characters have too much to do. They wouldn't have time to do that kind of commuting. So it's never clear. You just kind of have to pretend based on the episode how far away they are from each other.
Well, I think the episode does a really good job in telling you that this is dangerous. And it is dangerous to airlift someone like a block, but the danger, as you might guess, increases based on how far it is. So I actually kind of like the idea of the hospital being far away, because it just raises the stakes of like what Lionel is willing to do to get the surgery done for his son.
And to contrast what we get later on in the dream too.
Right. Because, well, Lionel is telling an unconscious Lex that he will walk again. We transition back to the coma dream, and Lex is driving home with a giant Christmas tree in tow. And Lana tells him that it all changed for them when he got shot. And we can see Lex embrace this version of his life where he is truly happy. And Derek, my God, I know he smiled in this series. I know this actor smiled in the role, but
not like
this is goof.
Different.
Oh my God. And he's wearing that white shirt. Oh God, this is just like, he's so hot. I
think that it's kind of underplayed in a good way.
Yeah.
Rosenbaum is a wildly different performance that he is giving in this dream than he's ever given on the show. Because it just, and I have a hard time pinpointing what he's doing with his body, but there is a sense of like weightlessness that he's giving.
Yeah.
And I don't think you realize what he's doing regularly on the show until you see this in comparison, that like he is always playing Lex with some sort of sense of like, almost like, I mean, not to just be like, there's a weight on his shoulders, but like literally he kind of is always playing that. Like like he has to be putting like Lex Luthor, the character, has to be putting on some sort of performance with how he's acting, and like very careful with his body and very sort of strict with how he moves, even when there's action stuff happening. He is just so loose and just so weightless and feels like so just like in the moment, at any given time, just enjoying himself in this episode. It is just very striking how differently he plays everything here than in any other episode of the show.
Oh, so good. It's so good. It seems free. It seems happy. And you can sort of get the sense that he's already learning the lesson that we'll later then come to, which is like, this is the ideal life. This is heaven.
Yeah.
And then we'll subvert that, which is great.
Absolutely. Also another evidence that this is a dream, and but also maybe the weird Metropolis Smallville, length of time distance. They wake up in the morning at the beginning of this dream. He takes his son to get one Christmas tree, and seemingly that's all they've done. And it is full ass nighttime when they come back, having run this one errand in Metropolis. So maybe it actually was like a 6-hour drive, because it doesn't really make any sense otherwise. Or it was just a dream and time doesn't matter.
Well, you know what? I like your first reading of this, because then even more credit to how happy Lex is that he was just in a car with a small child for 3 hours and he's still like, yes, this is heaven. Because let me tell you, I would have a different read on the scenario. Children are our future. We love them, but like, yikes.
Right.
We then get this moment that we sort of intoned earlier. Clark's telling Santa all about his life and what brought him to deliver the presents. That renews Santa's belief in the spirit of Christmas. But oh no, he slips and falls off the roof, and it's Clark to the rescue. He does his super run up down the wall, catches Santa and his booze just in the nick of time, and we get the great ho ho holy cow.
Yeah, yes, I think it's really cute. It's really fun. Seeing Clark run down the side of a building actually is like really quietly, like really fucking cool, actually.
It's great. It looks fantastic.
Yeah. And actually the effect of him catching the liquor bottle, like, is really well done too. Yeah. I think he said on the Talkville podcast, like, he was like, I think there were wires when they had the film The Santa Falling, but him actually like holding the Santa in his arms, like the actual moment of catching, that's just all Welling. He's just like that strong, just be holding that full ass man in his arms like that.
Too large of him. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Like, that feels indecent. It's off brand for me, but like, he's so big.
He's a gigantic man. Yep. So then back to the coma stuff. The doctors are starting to operate on Lex, which then takes us into the coma dream. Clark invites Lex and Lana inside at this holiday party where they're greeted by Mr. Kent, who is now a state senator. They don't give Clark glasses, but they do give John Schneider glasses, which I think is a fun choice.
Yeah.
But I mean, he would have aged more in 7 years than the others would have probably. Yeah. So, Jonathan Kent shares that Lex will be winning a humanitarian award, and he tells him how proud that he is of him.
Lex, I never actually thought I'd say this. I couldn't be prouder of you if you were my own son. Mr. Kent. Jonathan. I don't know what to say.
Which is important for so many reasons, because, like, I mean, it is almost a joke at a certain point in this show that Lex is like the quintessential well done son guy, where all he ever wants is his father to tell him he's proud of him. And his father throughout his entire life has never given him that. And that's more or less what has driven him to do all of the worst things that he's ever done in his life, is just, I want daddy to be proud of me. And then conversely, for the entire run of the show, he's also kind of been trying to get Jonathan Kent to be his father figure, and treat him like he treats Clark. And Jonathan's always like rebuffed at every given point throughout the show. And it's like, I think that you're actually deep down a piece of shit, actually. And so in the stream, to be given both a father figure and specifically that father figure to tell him that he is proud of him, like, that genuinely is probably the greatest thing that has ever happened to him in his entire life. That one thing.
Yeah. It again just continues to sell this idea of heaven, and the award itself almost doesn't matter. It's just, that's the path we get to. I'm proud of you, because you can't just have Jonathan Kent walk up and be like, I'm proud of you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's a really smart way of delivering, and honestly, very economical. Like, we are doing this in a very short period of time, which I think sells it really great and leads us into this next sequence so well, because Lex is then out on the patio talking to, again, Ghost Mom, and he's just like, this is the best day of my life. And that's when she goes like, this could all be yours. She actually isn't spooky. I just added that myself. This could all be yours if you like make the right decisions. And he asks what, but then Clark's there interrupting his little conversation. And I liked that because we're in a dream. We know it's a dream because we're watching it. But then Lex has to sort of be like, I was talking to myself. I don't know. It stuck out to me as this like really nice little moment between them.
I agree. I mean, this whole scene, I think, with him and Clark is really nice because so much of the drama of the show has been driven by characters keeping secrets with each other and not talking to each other openly and having these like romantic triangles that drive them to be really shitty to each other. Yeah. And so to have these two adult men just have a conversation about the girl that they at different points in their life have both loved deeply and just be totally chill about it.
Me and Lana. Now, how the hell did that happen?
Oh, became the kind of man she could love.
You mean the kind of man you've always been?
And Lex, you offered her something I didn't.
What held you back, Clark? I mean, I know you loved her.
I don't know, I guess I just wasn't ready, Lex. Maybe I never will be. But I am glad that you and Lana ended up together and we've been able to remain such good friends.
Just be like, yeah, we all had this long, weird history and everything's fine, right? And Clark's like, yeah, I'm happy that you have her. You're great together. You're a better man than I am for that. Like, like, again, all the things that like Lex surely has wanted to hear have just been like, what if we all just like put all this bullshit behind us and we're just fucking adults about this stuff? Wouldn't we all be happy? And yes, you are happy when you just do that.
And it's wild, Derek, for an episode that is so magical in so many ways. This is the most realistic. Like, I could have this conversation with my ex's new boyfriend on a patio in Kansas. I really could. It's so real. It's so grounded.
It's so grounded, and it's just proof of like maturity and like growth, and just it's almost like outside of this show's existence as sort of a kind of soap opera, you know, of that. It's just like, yeah, nobody's being like, what are you keeping from me, Clark? Like, secrets and lies. It's sort of like, yeah, it's weird that I ended up with the girl that you loved, right? Like, yeah, well, she loves you and you're happy and I'm happy for both of you. So it's great. Like, like normal people talking about normal things. Actually really refreshing.
It's like really healthy dynamic here, actually. It's great. I love seeing it.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't love seeing it for 24 episodes a season. I would get a little bored. But...
Well, sure. But yeah, like in comparison, it's like really nice and refreshing to see.
Yeah. But wow, this is the patio where people interrupt nice moments, because then Martha Kent comes out and says that Lex tells Lex that Lana is in labor.
Can I need to call you out for a second.
I even was reading this and I was like, David, fix this on the fly. Wow.
The notes the way he refers to Martha in this moment is then Mrs. Clark comes outside to tell Lex. I don't know if you know this, but you know that Martha's maiden name is Clark. That's how Clark got his name.
I did not know that.
Because the reason that he's named Clark Kent is because they had to come up with a name on the fly to explain like that they adopted this kid. And so she just comes up with Clark because that was her maiden name. Like that was the first name she came up with.
Brilliant.
So she is kind of in a way Mrs. Clark, actually.
Hey, listen, I wish that I could invent a world where Annette O'Toole didn't have to marry Schneider. Like, that would be great.
Yeah.
If only I could give you that gift. But no, it's all to get Lex back inside because Lana is in labor. And meanwhile, in the real world, there's trouble with the surgery going on for Lex.
Yes. So we transition from the real hospital to the Coma Dream Hospital, and Lana has given birth to a baby girl. So it looks like it's a really sweet moment at first, but then it's not. Because then something is wrong with Lana and they cut away.
Yeah. I think my gripe in this episode is that Lana is just having "you're a woman who gave birth" in a written piece of media complication.
Yes. And the show has had issues with how it treats women sometimes, especially Lana. It goes both ways. There's also lots of women in the show and that do great things too.
Yeah.
And there's a certain point when there's like more women in the cast than there are men, which you can't say for most other comic book superhero things. But yeah, I agree with you. And honestly, there's weird stuff with Lana and pregnancy that the show does that is really uncomfortable too, honestly. But the counter to that, I would say, is that I do think all of this makes sense in this episode because this is Lex's dream.
Yeah.
And I do think that like part of the reason that this all kind of works for him is that it is very much his ideal. And like his ideal is that Lana's just like the love of his life and there's no other complications or issues with that. She's just his wife and the mother of his children. And why else would there be more to it than that? You know,
That's true. The real misogyny is Lex Luthor. Shocking.
I mean, well, yeah, look, the pregnancy shit that I was alluding to, it's all Lex's fault that really fucking uncomfortable storyline happens in the next season involving Lana and pregnancy. So look, he is a villain. Yeah, he's a villain.
He's a villain. Yeah, I do like that we were actually pretty rapidly cutting between coma hospital and real hospital. And I was like, wow, hospitalception. Like we are just hospitals all over the place.
Yeah. You know, what I'll say too, is interesting that I noticed on this watch through, every single time they want to go up to a certain point, every single time that you revisit the coma dream, they do have one quick scene of the real life hospital to make it very clear that like we are transitioning into the dream, except between the commercial from here to the next one, when Lana starts dying from childbirth, they cut to commercial, they cut back directly into the dream, which I think is a really, really interesting choice.
Yeah.
Because if you're just dropping in, you've missed most of the episode, but you also be deeply confused. So I do think part of it's sort of like, at this point, you're going to be lost anyway, so who the fuck cares if we reset this up? But also, I do think it's because this is sort of what you're supposed to be paying attention to. Like, no, we are in it now with this dream, so we're not even going to bother cutting away from it now.
I love that. You know that one of my favorite things is I just got back from the bathroom, what did I miss sequence. And we actually do not get that. You're absolutely right. Like if you just turned on the episode after the baseball game, you are lost. And sometimes, you know what, sometimes narratives have to move forward and not play to the audience that didn't watch the first 3/4 of the episode.
Right.
So when we do come back from commercial, we learn that Lana's lost a lot of blood. The nurse says there's nothing they can do. And coma dream Lex goes to his father to ask for help because Lana needs a specialist. But Mr. Luthor refuses. He has given up, or Lex has given up on the election against Jonathan Kent. And Lex was shot 7 years ago. And that's when Lionel disowned him.
Don't you understand that every decision you've made has brought you to this very moment? Beginning that day 7 years ago in the hospital when you decided to forfeit the state senate race to Jonathan Kent. I told you this would happen. I warned you, but you chose to give up your family. And when you made that decision, you gave up the money and the power that would have enabled you to save your wife.
The other sort of evidence to this being a dream and not real future is that earlier episodes about the election, Lionel's motivation that he tells other people other than Lex is that he actually like does not want him to be elected because he knows he would be a freaking horrible senator and he kind of actually wants him to drop out. And so this is sort of runs counter to that a bit, that like that Lionel would disown him if he dropped out of the election. But from Lex's perspective, it totally does make sense. And conversely, I do think at this point in the show, Lionel's motivations are often very, very confusing in general, partially because of the writing, but also partially because he's just sort of like an insane old man at this point, honestly. So I also could buy it where it's sort of like he's telling other people he wants Lex to drop out, but he doesn't actually want Lex to drop out because it wants Lex to be a strong Luthor and prove himself. So if he did actually drop out, he would be disappointed in him for dropping out, even though he tells everyone else that he wants him to drop out. So like it kind of goes both ways, but no matter what, from Lex's perspective, I think that this totally makes sense for what his father would want from him.
Right. Yeah. He's a real 4D chess chaos player like that. But that's again, that makes him so simple and easy compared to Lex, who is so complicated. And I have love and I want these things and I want power, but that's actually a smokescreen because I actually want this other thing. And I love that next to each other. Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about this before, but the fucking lighting in this is ridiculous. It is wild in this scene. And I think really effective. Like, it looks, I don't even really know how to explain like what it looks like. Like, I mean, I can explain what it looks like if you would like, Derek. Okay, go for it. This is the setting of the music video "Total Eclipse of the Heart" by Bonnie Tyler. Oh my fucking God, David. Down to the fact that if you just catch it out of the corner of your eye, that is what Jonathan Glover's hair looks like. Fucking genius, actually. You're so right. It's terrible, but it is like that. It's like that dark old school building.
Yeah.
There is weird lighting. It's the Vaseline is the highest it has been in the episode.
Oh my God,
because
dude.
every light is catching some giant blur.
Look, you've been watching this being like, do I have an astigmatism now? Like, I didn't realize that I did, but I guess I do.
Oh, it's so good though. Because it is.
I love it. I love it.
It's the darkest part of the dream sequence, but it still is using so much more light than it would use for a dark scene in the real world.
It's not
And
lit
that's
like
what,
anything in reality ever would look like. Like there's no lights in anyone's mansion that would ever look like this.
Yes.
Like, and it's so evocative. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I see the boys fencing right in front of Bonnie Tyler as she belts her little notes out. Incredible. God, I was hoping you had seen that. I was really worried about making that reference.
Oh, are you kidding me? Of course I've seen.
Okay. Yeah.
Total Eclipse of the Heart. Are you kidding me? I'm a gay man. I'm a gay millennial.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, this fails. Like Lionel Luthor really genuinely does just say, I don't care. How can I help the mother of my grandchildren when I have no son? Like, why would I do that? So it's really brutal. So Lex goes back to Lana, is like begging her not to leave him. They share that they love each other, but then, and Lana tells him he's a good man, but then she dies. He's not able to save her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved "you're a good man" being sort of it's not the actual last thing she says, but it's the last important thing she says.
Right.
And it's important for him to hear that.
Yeah. Cause that's the whole point of this dream, is that like, there is still a chance for you to be a good person with a full happy life. There is still a chance. Like, you are not fully beyond redemption yet. No matter how much you think you are, because I think a lot of Lex's issues too come from the complex that he has, where it's sort of like, well, if everyone thinks I'm a terrible person, then I might as well be a terrible person. And this is sort of like, you don't actually have to do that yet. And people will eventually accept you, and you could get everything you wanted out of that.
Yeah. But I like that we're doing what villains do when they lose their love, is they get mad. And the only thing Lex can get mad at is the ghost mom vision that he has. He like demands to know what has happened.
I thought you were showing me a better life.
I was, Lex. I am.
A life where my wife dies. A life full of pain.
No, Lex, a life full of love.
Love. Everyone I've ever loved has died. First Julian, and then you. And now Lana's dead. And I couldn't do anything to stop it.
But before she can answer, we're out of the dream sequence, and Lionel is telling him he's all right.
Well, she does give him an answer, though, is the thing. And that's very much like, because he basically voices, like, I think a valid thing is sort of like, you gave me this vision, but all it's doing is proving that, like, my life would still be the same where everyone that I love dies. And he calls out his brother, and he calls out his mom, that like anyone that I make this deep connection to dies. So why would I want to like continue? Like, why would you show me this, that other people are just going to die no matter what I do? And her reaction is sort of like, but it's a life full of love. And that's what he's kind of missing in his life right now, is that there's like no love in his life. He's lost, he's alienated all of his friends, and he doesn't have like a relationship. He doesn't have a good relationship with his father. There's like, he lives a loveless life at this point. And her whole deal is that it's sort of like, no matter what, you will still have a life of love, even when there's still tragedy. And I do think that that's a thing that has made me for a long time sort of conflicted about this episode, that in a way, from a narrative writing perspective, it is a little bit too easy that it's like, of course, the vision that he's given is the vision of the day that his wife dies. Like, there could have been any other day where he just has a normal, fun day where it's sort of like, isn't your life full of love? It's nice, isn't it? Okay, live like this. So it's like, why would his ghost mom from the spirit world be like, I'm going to teach you a lesson by showing you one of the most tragic days of your life, probably. And I think that part of that lends credence to the idea that like, this is actually a dream, and that this is just Lex internally manifesting these feelings of like, what if I made this choice? What would happen? And he sees all the good stuff, but of course it's human nature to be like, but what are the cons as well? Like, but what if it did also go badly? And so this is his mind kind of going down that path of sort of like, yeah, it could be good, but then she could also fucking die and I wouldn't have the money to save her. So actually that would be really bad. And then that sort of allows him to self-justify making the choice to not pursue this, where it's like, well, maybe I could still have all of this if I did have power and money anyway.
This is so fascinating, Derek, because we both got to the same end conclusion, but I walked a completely opposite road of yours, because I believe that Lex's takeaway from this was, if I decide to be a good person, the woman I love will die.
Sure.
And
I think that that's true too. I think that is also true though. Yeah.
And that's why the vision is her death. That's what he needs to learn, is I need to pick the other direction or Lana will die.
I see what you're saying. That this is all him. This whole dream is him ultimately justifying.
Exactly.
That. Like all this lead up of his happiness is for him to give himself that happiness to then have it taken away to show him that like this is what will happen if it's a good man. It's all fake. Being a good person is all fake because you'll still be met with tragedy that you can't do anything about.
And the way that I got there was Lana saying, "You're a good man," and then her like dying.
Yeah, that is such a good point. I love that interpretation of it.
I mean, we got to the same place, and obviously then like Lex is evil.
I think that's what I like about this episode, though, is that it is sort of complicated. Like at first, like I was saying, it's like it seems almost easy to just like have the Vision pick this day, so because of course he'll make the path to be darker. But I think that ultimately makes it a little more complicated. I think it would actually be easier, or it would feel a little more pat if it was just like he gives a perfect day and then he just misinterprets it somehow. In this case, it almost like allows him to feel like he's making a conscious choice that rationalizes and for him and justifies all the horrible things he does in the future because he's experienced this, which doesn't absolve him of making bad choices. But for him, it's sort of like, this is why he would think it's okay. It's not just because he's like, I'm evil now. It's more like the only way I could ever get what I want is to do these horrible things. Right. And I deserve that. I should be able to have that.
I think that's what took this episode from a 9 to a 10 to me. Cause I think we talked about it in True Calling. We have enough ambiguity here that you can I think a lot of different viewers can have a lot of different takes from this, and they all end up being right because Lex is evil. So like any way you get there, you're fine. But I think there's enough nuance that is really fun to play around with in the front of your brain. Yeah.
I like that. And I think I like too, that I think a lot of conversations about this show that are correct is that like a lot of people put a lot of fault on to like Clark and his family and friends for not like being nicer to Lex to help him become a better person. And I do think that a lot of the reasons Lex goes down to dark paths is just because he had a friend who could have treated him better that lied to him all the time and then, drove him to like do crazy things. But this episode, I think, is the point in the opposite court where it's sort of like, nothing that Clark did had anything to do with this choice. At the end of the day, no matter what all these outside forces are doing, Lex still does have to make these choices for himself. Exactly. And this episode is all internal and all about him ultimately making a choice for himself. And it's sort of like the thought process of how he gets to making those choices. And like, regardless of what anyone else does, he still has to be responsible for those choices that he makes. Therefore, it is still kind of his fault that he ends up being a villain by the end of this.
Right. And no matter how I do think that Smallville does a really good job on being sort of the Lex Luthor story.
100%.
Like I don't think that you could do like you're doing with the Penguin right now on HBO that with Lex Luthor, because this series actually does it very, very well. Yeah. But ultimately, anytime you're exploring a villain, it's their selfishness versus the selflessness of heroes in the world. Yeah. And this selfishness is based in love for Lana Lang, and I love how well constructed that is over the 5 years. And again, when you said like they had not really spent a lot of time together, that is baffling to me because I know that Lex loves Lana.
Yeah, right, for sure.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, it's good.
I also love what comes next, which is resolving the B plot. Just because
it's a nice little palate cleanser after all that tragedy.
God, and it's turned up to like 100. So Chloe's working, and the same Santa that we saw on the roof with Clark arrives and offers to help deliver the packages. They do have enough back and forth that we believe that Chloe is hesitant, but then accepts the help. But as soon as she turns around to get the addresses from MapQuest, Santa and the presents are gone. And just incredible. Love it.
Little
Love
tinkly music as everything disappears,
The tinkling. Oh, while the Nutcracker Suite plays underneath. We are in Christmas heaven here, Derek.
Yeah. It's really fun.
I think that Smallville did this a lot. I think we talked about how great the set decorations are, but when we're zooming into the scene, there is a nice little inside baseball gag with the paper for the Daily Planet that reads "Northern neighbor upset with NAFTA," which of course would be Canada. And this would have been the time in which a lot of production companies were increasing the amount of work without increasing the compensation of employees for Vancouver production folks. So this even could have been a tongue-in-cheek from a production perspective that wasn't even like written into the script.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And NAFTA really screwed Canada. Not shocking. I don't think.
Interesting. Yeah. We got a brief but impactful scene. Come back to Lex again, where Lex is pissed that his father risked his life for the surgery after hearing what the odds were and how low the odds were, and that it wasn't the doctor's recommendation. He is pissed and completely chews Lionel out, even though Lionel's like, "But you survived, so I was right, obviously." Yeah, and I think it's in stark contrast with like the dream version of Lionel, not being willing to do that.
Right. It's just so good, and I think that Rosenbaum this is like, he is always killing it in every scene, but this is he's had to do so much this episode, and seeing his return to sort of this cold calculus and sort of demanding his father either apologize or take accountability for it is so well acted here.
Yeah. We get our one last bit of sweetness at the Kent home, where the real Christmas party is in full swing. Chloe's talking about her encounter with Santa, and they're like, what's the deal here? Is there a real Santa Claus? And Clark's like, I might be an alien, but why would I believe in Santa Claus? It's cute because, obviously they're never going to get an answer. There's not going to be like a Clark Kent Santa Claus team up later in the show or anything. So it's just fun Christmas magic stuff. And the party moves outdoors because it's snowing. They're going to get a white Christmas. And Clark and Lana are together for the first time, hopefully of many, for many Christmases. So they think. Nope, they'll be broken up by next Christmas. Sorry.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it was funny because as I watched that, I was like, dun dun dun. Like,
yeah, it's
literally pretty foreboding.
Like, the very next episode puts them on like the harsh road for like a breakup like 2 episodes from now. So like, oops, sorry guys.
Yeah. I also just love how alive this Christmas party is. I think we've got some great background here. Like it's that eggnog is just flowing freely. It's just great. It looks great.
I would love to be at a Christmas party like this though. It looks so fun and so cheerful. They cameo the older couple who actually owns like the real Kent farm in Canada that they film the outdoor scenes in. They make a cameo, like when Lana's offering an older couple eggnog. Those are the people that actually live on that actual farm in real life.
That's so cool.
Fun. It's fun that they got to be invited to like a real Smallville Christmas party. I love that.
I love that. That's a great way to use them too, because you just need like someone to hold this, and absolutely do not drink it, because whatever it is not consumable.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that the whatever that viscous liquid was, even if it was real eggnog, it's been sitting out for like 6 hours.
If it reads good on camera, it will not taste good in your mouth.
Sure.
And then we put a bow on it. We have to close the envelope, and we are back in the clinic where Lex is, and Griff has come to call on him. Lex appears to have learned a lesson, and we think that I think that maybe if you were optimistic, you were going to hope that he was like, "No, Griff, bug off."
Well, it's not every day one has a near-death experience. That's true. Much like Ebenezer Scrooge, I realized that what I want more than anything is to live happily ever after. And do you know what the secret to living happily ever after is? Power. Money and power. See, once you have those 2 things, you can secure everything else. And keep it that way.
But instead, he says the secret to happiness is money and power, and he tells Griff to go forward with whatever it takes to knock Jonathan Kent out of the race. Lex wants to be a senator. He wants it all.
I like that he specifically, like, in case you didn't get it, name drops Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yes.
But I which, you know what, normally I would think is really hacky, but the fact that this is meant to be an inverse of that it's sort of like, much like Ebenezer Scrooge, I realize, like, all I want more than anything is to live happily ever after. And I'm like, you learned the exact wrong lesson from Ebenezer Scrooge. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, yeah. And I love that the way they frame him, like almost in full silhouette in profile against like the blue window full of snow when he's saying all of this. It's so dark. And then ending on this like ominous reflection of his mom in the window that disappears as it pans out. It's so smart. This show actually does a lot with using like kind of manifestations of Lex's psyche, like as a person to represent like when he's like moving forward with something really dark. Like they have with his mom here, and then like she disappears. He never really sees a full vision of her ever again. There's like one episode later this season where like he actually like sees the afterlife, and she basically tells him she's disappointed in him essentially.
Awesome.
Basically referencing I guess the point in this episode being a real vision is that theoretically he is actually seeing her in the afterlife. And I think she does reference the dream in that afterlife. And it's sort of like, you learned the wrong lesson, you fucking idiot. So I guess that's points in favor of this having been real, but maybe also the afterlife was a dream. Who fucking knows? But there's also like episodes in later seasons where like he has visions of his childhood self. And like I don't really like season 7 generally. I think that season mostly kind of sucks, but one of the best episodes, probably the best episode in that whole season is about his like final turn to the dark side. And he actually like keeps envisioning his childhood self, like being upset at him for killing his own father. And he like literally throws his childhood self into the fireplace and murders him, like fully like killing any part of himself that was like good or redemptive in any way. So like, and the show uses those visuals actually pretty strikingly often.
I love that. That makes me so happy. This, Derek, we went back and forth on a couple of Christmas episodes that we could do. I wanted to talk about Smallville. I wanted to talk about Rosenbaum.
Yeah, make this clear that this was not my choice. This was a David pick, not a me pick.
Isn't that
actually
shocking, listeners? But I had so much fun with this. I love this. I think we have plenty in the barrel to go back to for Christmas episodes in the future. I think this is a fun gimmick to talk about. But wow, this episode was it was riotous. It was emotional. It was deep. It was just fucking gorgeous to look at. I had so much fun with this, and it made me want to keep watching after I watched the pilot of the series.
Yeah. Season 5, good fucking season. I think the season's really, really well constructed. And I waffle on where it falls on my favorites list, but it's usually like around like number 2. It's good. It's a great season, and it's a really good episode. And I'm glad that they knocked it out of the park with a Christmas episode.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Any other big Smallville thoughts, Derek?
I think I've noticed it feels like people have been revisiting it a lot lately. And I do think it's a show that actually does age surprisingly well. Like the visual effects on this show are really top notch. I think it is shocking that this show is like as old as it is, that it premiered like 25 years ago. That doesn't make sense to me. And I think obviously in like fashion and hairstyles and stuff, it feels like that in some ways, and like music choices, but because the set design is always really good, because it's always shot really well. And the acting is sometimes way better than the material is demanding. I think it holds up incredibly well and feels like does not feel its age whatsoever, I would say. And I think that if you want an antidote to the way that a lot of modern superhero stuff feels a little bit homogenous, I think that Smallville having such specific, unique takes on things, I think can be kind of refreshing coming back to it. I think they have really inventive, smart ideas. And I don't think that we would have superhero media, love it or hate it, I don't think that we would have superhero media the way that we do without Smallville being a piece of that, and showing that you could do it on a kind of grounded television budget, but still do wild, fantastical things and still go really deep into DC lore. And I think, it's a great entry point to DC comic stuff. Really fun show to revisit. And even with its ups and downs, I think it's a great ride to go through.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. We're just about to finish Lost, so we have an open spot on the household calendar. Maybe I will try to sneak this in there. I
think it's worth it. And like you said, you can just kind of have this one on in the background sometimes, because some episodes aren't great, but they're always like fun to look at and just have on,
That's what I need. Honestly, this is the remedy after we finished True Calling. This is what I should have put on.
It's in True Calling shares very similar DNA in a lot of ways, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a fun one to leave off on because we're actually going to be going on break for a little while. We'll be back at the top of February, but it was really fun to leave off on one that's so Christmassy.
Yeah. Happy Christmas, everyone. I hope that you have a great holiday season.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to check up on what I'm doing, you can find me online at dmuma. That's DMUMA. I'm really only active on Instagram and Blue Sky now, so that's the places to find me. And I do a couple other podcasts here with Glitterjaw. One is called Are You My Mother?, where we talk about mother figures in media and talk about whether they meet or betray the expectations of what it means to be a mother. And then in my other podcast, my friends Marilee and Tyler are walking me, sort of a neophyte to horror, down into the depths of the breadth of this genre. And just this week we released an episode with Derek's co-host Doug from Walloping Web Snappers and Screonk to talk about I Saw the TV Glow. So if you were a big WB watcher, there will be a lot for you to mine with that film, and I hope you will enjoy that conversation. Derek, what about you? Where can folks find you and the things you are working on?
Sure, you can find me in most places at Derek B. Gale. David mentioned a couple of the podcasts that I do, but I have Walloping Web Snappers that I do with my co-host Doug, where we do deep dives into every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. I have Screonk that I also do with Doug, where we go through all of the Godzilla filmography, and that's a monthly podcast. And I also have Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, which I do with my co-host Tommy, where we go through the Simpsons tie-in video games chronologically, as well as video game history and pop culture history and Simpsons history. And you can find all of those on Glitterjaw.
Yeah, everything that we've talked about is a Glitterjaw show, but of course, Gimmicks is as well. We are proudly part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you are looking for other queer media podcasts, you can check out the full roster of Glitterjaw shows at glitterjaw.com, including our new podcast to the collective, The Q Division, which is covering the James Bond films in order. That is out now. Last week, they released the episode on the original Casino Royale, and in a couple weeks, you can hear them talk about Sean Connery with Dr. No. So really excited about that one getting going.
Nice. If you want to support this show by giving us a little tip, you can buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/gimmickspod. You can also follow this podcast at GimmicksPod on Twitter and Instagram, and email us your questions, feedback, and corrections to gimmickspodcast@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe on all your podcast platforms. And until next time, friends,
keep being weird. Ho, ho, holy cow.
All the kinfolk gather round the lovely Christmas tree. Hearts are glowing full of joy, says the gifts that we're giving, and the love that we're living. Why can't it remain? Why can't it remain? All through the year. All through the year. Each day the same. Each day the same. That's what I wanna hear. I tell you, it's truly amazing, that spirit of Christmas. Let me hear you.
Ho, ho, holy cow!
Merry Christmas.